Today on Matt Walsh Show, Democrats in Congress have introduced a $1 trillion slavery reparations bill. Also, Mike Lee is pushing a bill that could lead to almost all being banned. Budget airlines are now so bad that they have roach infestations on their planes. And thousands of people on social media have been very mad at me this week, claiming that I tweeted a swastika and announced my allegiance to the Nazi party. Is that true? And what is my message to the outraged mob? Well, we'll talk about all that and more today on the Matt Walsh Show. Debt doesn't just show up one day. It builds little by little. Credit cards, car loans, medical bills, and suddenly you're juggling payments, feeling stuck. But here's the good news. You're not stuck. You just need a reset. American Financing, they help homeowners like you every day. They use your home equity and roll that high interest debt into one simple, affordable payment. They're saving homeowners an average of $800 a month. No judgment, no pressure, just real solutions that put you back in control. Imagine breathing again, sleeping again, knowing your future is yours to shape. It starts with one call. It only takes 10 minutes to get started, and there are no upfront fees. So it costs nothing to find out how much you can save. And if you start today, you may be able to delay your next 2 mortgage payments. American Financing salary-based consultants are ready to listen and ready to help. Take back your peace of mind with American Financing. Call American Financing today, 866-569-4711. That's 866-569-4711. Or visit americanfinancing.net/Walsh. There are many ways in which the House of Representatives is feeling the effects of the absence of former Congresswoman Cori Bush. Now, you might remember that Cori Bush was the only member of Congress in the history of this country who claimed to have performed a bona fide miracle while in office. Specifically, in a televised interview, Bush said that she once cured a woman's cancer simply by placing her hand on the woman's body. As she put it, this homeless lady came up to us and she had these tumors and she wanted us to feel them. I laid hands on her and prayed, and then I felt that my hand was no longer touching a tumor. It shrank along with the others on her body, and the lumps that were there were no longer there. She was so happy, and she went on about her day, close quote. It's too bad that this homeless woman disappeared because this kind of interaction seems like the thing that cancer researchers might have been interested in following up on. But in any event, Bush did not stop there because, as we all know, you need 2 miracles in order to qualify for sainthood. Normally, these miraculous events occur after the saint has died, but Bush doesn't have time for that. And therefore, she claimed that she also once helped a toddler take her first steps in St. Louis, even though the child was gravely ill. Quote, I carried the child from the prayer room in the back of the church out onto the sanctuary. Walk, I said gently to the 3-year-old girl. You will walk. And this girl took her first step, Bush wrote. Because Bush was voted out of office in the last election, unfortunately, we don't hear stories like this anymore. Therefore, until Jesus himself returns, we can assume that countless hobos in St. Louis will continue to suffer needlessly from all kinds of horrible afflictions. But despite that sad reality, it's not all bad news. Consider the fact that without Cori Bush's voice to amplify them, a lot of fraudulent BLM narratives will die before they get started. We won't have to listen to her tributes to Michael Brown and George Floyd every year, so that's something at least. Yet we've lost a miracle worker. But we have gained some peace and quiet. So, that's the trade-off. Or at least we thought we gained some peace and quiet. At the moment, there is a concerted effort underway among House Democrats to revive the legacy of Cori Bush, such as it is. But they're not revising the whole bid for sainthood routine. Instead, they are doubling down on Cori Bush's true passion in life, which is whipping up a race war. And to that end, Democrats are revitalizing one of Bush's dumbest ideas, which is her plan to enact trillions of dollars in reparations. Quoting from The Hill, a coalition of Democratic lawmakers and advocates on Thursday reintroduced a resolution to offer reparations to descendants of enslaved Africans and people of African descent. Representative Summer Lee led the reintroduction of the Reparations Now resolution, which was first introduced in 2023 by former Representative Cori Bush. The resolution calls for the federal government to allocate trillions of dollars in reparations to Black Americans. Now, keep in mind the entire federal budget for the last fiscal year was around $7 trillion, so we're talking about spending a very significant chunk of the overall federal budget on handouts to Black people, essentially. And on top of these trillions of dollars in reparations, Cory Booker and Jasmine Crockett are also planning to introduce the Truth, Racial Healing, and Transformation Commission Act, which would supposedly, quote, acknowledge and memorialize the arrival of the first slave ship in the United States and the injustices suffered by people of color throughout history. Now, here is Ayanna Pressley and Summer Lee to explain. And before I play this, these clips are not sped up in any way, at least as far as I know. I mean, this is how I found them. They're like this. It just seems like they're talking really, really fast for some reason. But anyway, here it is.
We are in a moment of anti-blackness on steroids, and we refuse to be silent. We will not back down in our pursuit of racial justice. The antidote to anti-blackness is to be pro-black, and we will do it unapologetically. The United States government owes us a debt, and we need reparations now. Let's make it clear. There is a debt that does exist. This country has taken so much from black folks and has a debt it owes because for over 400 years into this very day, this country has stolen black labor, black lives, black futures. Industries were built and maintained through the subjugation of black people in this country, and wealth was built and maintained through the discriminatory policies that still plague us to this day. And to be clear, some people directly benefited from it or are direct beneficiaries of it. We have systems that create and perpetuate imbalances and balances in our society, and you either benefit from it or you are disenfranchised by it. And black people continue to be disenfranchised and harmed by these systems. Others receive advantages from it.
I mean, that has to be sped up, right? That's like, are they really just talking that way? I don't know. It's either sped up or they're on cocaine. I mean, either one of those possibilities is very valid. And now, before we go any further with the specifics of this legislation, I have to provide something of a disclosure at this point. You know, we've talked about the issue of reparations plenty of times on this show, and the difference is that now I have a very personal stake in the issue, and that's because recently, and somewhat unexpectedly, and I say this with nothing but modesty in my heart, I have become, as you know, something of a pioneer when it comes to the issue of reparations in the United States. In fact, according to all available information, I am the only person in America, along with Robin DiAngelo, who has actually paid reparations. Now, you might point out that I was undercover doing a movie when I paid my reparations, Am I Racist?, which you can watch on DailyWire right now. You might point out that I took my reparations back immediately after the cameras were turned off. And you might point out that the reparations were only like $20 or whatever I had in my wallet. All of that is true, but that's not the important thing to keep in mind here. The important thing is that I am an expert on this issue. I'm been personally involved in a way that very few people are. And so I have no choice but to chime in and provide my analysis. And with that in mind, the first thing that needs to be said is that if we really want reparations for the descendants of slaves, then, we're going to need to spend a lot more than $1 trillion. And that's because, of course, every single person who's alive right now on the planet, if you go back far enough, has ancestors who were slaves, period, no exceptions. I mean, the Romans alone enslaved millions of people from all over the world. So did Egypt, Greece, China, the Persians, the Russians, the Mayans, the Aztecs, Ottomans, and so on. And that's not even getting into indentured servitude. You take a look at what happened to Irish Catholics in the 17th century in places like Barbados, for example. Technically, many of these Irishmen became indentured servants, not slaves, but in many cases, that meant that they were treated even worse than slaves since they weren't expected to work for their entire lives. Roughly half of them died within 4 years by some estimates. As the researcher Michael Mahoney pointed out, quote, John Scott, an English adventurer who traveled in the West Indies during the Commonwealth, saw Irish servants working in field gangs with slaves without stockings under the scorching sun. The Irish, he wrote, were derided by the Negroes and branded with the epithet of white slaves. Once in the Caribbean, many plantation owners considered servants and freemen from Ireland as a potentially subversive lot who had to be controlled and kept in a laboring status. Punishments for attempted escapes included branding the letters FT, fugitive trader, on the servant's forehead. One assembly member in Barbados is quoted in 1667 as stating, "We have more than a good many Irish amongst us, therefore I am for the downright Scot, who I am certain will fight without a crucifix about his neck." Close quote. In other words, a lot of obvious anti-Catholic, anti-white bigotry at work here. And in many cases, these Irish servants were treated far worse than slaves as they worked alongside them. And this is just one of many, many examples. Here's another. Did you know that in 1797, 20% of the U.S. federal budget, a total of $1 million at the time, went to paying tribute to Muslim nations in North Africa so that they would stop enslaving white people? This was a big business for them. In total, they enslaved more than 1 million whites from both Europe and the United States. This was during the Barbary Wars. And for context today, we don't spend anywhere near 20% of the U.S. budget on defense spending. But in 1797, we spent 20% of the budget on ransom payments to Algiers. And as we did so, the Africans made sure to mock Americans at every opportunity. The tribute was ultimately ferried to Constantinople by the frigate USS George Washington, and along the way, the Africans forced the American warship to fly an Ottoman flag. There was sadistic brutality going on at every level, and they only stopped enslaving white people because they were forced to do so. Now, these are chapters from American history that you don't hear much about. Certainly smooth-brained race hustlers like Ayanna Pressley won't mention any of this, probably don't even know about any of it. And that's because, as always, their goal isn't to actually have a serious discussion about reparations to the extent that it's even possible to do so. They know that this resolution has no chance of passing in either chamber of Congress, much less being signed into law. They know that this is purely performative. It's a purely performative piece of legislation that's intended to stoke racial conflict and enrage as many people as possible so that they'll feel entitled and envious. And then they might finally start rioting, as Democrats desperately want them to do. And it's no coincidence that, as we talked about yesterday, we are seeing this pivot on the left back to race hustling. Not that they ever left it, but pivoting back to it in a very serious way, heading into the summer under the first year of Trump's new term in office. Pretty clear what they want to see happen. Now, of course, it should also be said that indirect, inexplicit reparations have already been paid in the form of DEI policies, in the form of affirmative action, the welfare state, every other policy put in place in the name of white guilt. Most of the federal government is a kind of make-work program for certain demographics to funnel them taxpayer money without any accountability. And we see what good all that has done for the black community. But explicit reparations, the kind where black Americans get money because they're black Americans for slavery, that will certainly never happen. From a political perspective, it's not feasible. It's just not going to happen. It will not be tolerated by the American public. This is yet another failed idea from the Cori Bush playbook, one among many. At the same time, it's interesting to note that this legislation comes at the very moment that white South Africans are fleeing their homeland, seeking refuge in the United States. They're being forcibly evicted from their own homes solely because of their skin color, as we've discussed several times this week. And you know what that means. There's about to be a lot more room in Africa for any supposedly oppressed group in the United States, including congresswomen like Ayanna Pressley. So maybe there's an opportunity here for a kind of reparation through repatriation thing. Maybe we can offer some of these Democrats taxpayer-funded, all-expenses-paid trip to whatever lands their ancestors are from, if they're so oppressed here. And, since we're judging everybody by their ancestors, it seems more than appropriate. Plus, they'll gain access to plenty of fertile farmland in South Africa, as Don Lemon often reminds us. The opportunity for untold riches in a land totally devoid of white people is right there for the taking. Will Ayanna Pressley and Summer Lee and all these other Democrats seize that opportunity? Well, of course not. That's because they know that when given the opportunity, they cannot govern. They can't improve anyone's lives. They certainly can't manage a farm. All they're capable of doing is playing the victim act, demonizing white people, looting the treasury. And without white people to demonize, there won't be any money to loot. That's why reparations is a losing issue for Democrats. It's also why South Africa is about to collapse entirely. And it's why, as many more Americans wake up to the reality of what's happening, politicians like Ayanna Pressley and Summer Lee and Ilhan Omar will go the way of Cori Bush. They'll be removed from Congress by the voters. That's the outcome these anti-white politicians are apparently clamoring for. And now that they've introduced this reparations bill once again and made it clear they have no interest in representing all Americans, regardless of race, we should give it to them. Now let's get to our 5 headlines. While other brands chase trends and flood the market with endless options, Momentous takes a different approach. They rely on research and expert guidance to focus on what truly matters, mastering the fundamentals with unwavering consistency, then tailoring supplementation to your specific goals. Momentous sets a new benchmark in the supplement industry through their commitment to transparency and trust. Working alongside human performance specialists, they develop formulas that have earned both NSF and Informed Sport certification, providing the reliability that their 200-plus professional and collegiate athletic customers depend on. Momentous sources the highest-grade creatine monohydrate available, an essential supplement for both men and women seeking peak physical and cognitive performance. Rather than cutting corners, they prioritize ingredient quality over cost, ensuring that their products deliver exactly what's promised on the label. Their guiding philosophy, the Momentous Standard, has become the industry gold standard for quality and effectiveness. So what are you waiting for? Head to livemomentous.com and use code Walsh for 35% off your first subscription. That's code Walsh at livemomentous.com for 35% off your first subscription. So the reparations bill, that's a bill, a very dumb bill that was introduced this week. Here is a bill that was introduced that is a very good bill. This is from the Post-Millennial. Senator Mike Lee, Republican of Utah, has introduced a bill that is targeted at banning online in the United States, as well as defining what obscenity is in legal terms. Lee, as well as Representative Mary Miller, introduced the bill called the Interstate Obscenity Definition Act, which, if passed, would make it illegal to transmit obscene material across state lines, making large swaths of material illegal online. In a new release from Lee, he said, obscenity isn't protected by the First Amendment, but hazy and unenforceable legal definitions have allowed extreme to saturate American society and reach countless children. Our bill updates the legal definition of obscenity for the internet age so that this content can be taken down and its peddlers prosecuted. Miller also commented on the bill, saying the Interstate Obscenity Definition Act equips law enforcement with the tools they need to target and remove obscene material from the internet, which is alarmingly destructive and far outside the bounds of protected free speech under the Constitution. This bill will clarify what obscenity means in the modern age, remove ambiguity around the term, and provide a standardized definition of what obscenity is. A Supreme Court case that was ruled on in 1973 made the term subjective as well as vague, and so that's what they're looking to fix. And this is great stuff. I'm obviously not at all optimistic that it will actually happen, but it should happen. It's time to end this charade about being free speech. It's not. This totally ridiculous pretense that the First Amendment covers hardcore, that the First Amendment requires us to allow millions of hours of hardcore to be readily and freely accessible to anyone at any moment and at any age. Like, it's insane. It's just insane. Does anyone actually think that our founding fathers, the guys who codified free speech into law, does anyone think that they would think that it covers internet? Now, obviously, internet didn't exist at the time, but if you could go back and show them, in a crystal ball, a world where everybody is carrying around a device in their pocket that gives them instantaneous access to videos of the most depraved sexual acts ever conceived by human beings, if you could show them that, does anyone think that any of them would say that, oh yeah, well, that's free speech? Yeah, oh yeah, that's what we meant. We meant that too. Does anyone think that? No, nobody thinks that. This is obscenity, the most extreme kind of obscenity. Obscenity laws exist in this country already. That's what this bill is all about. They exist in this country. They've always existed. This has been the precedent since always, basically, in this country, that free speech is one thing, obscenity is another thing. And free speech does not cover obscenity. The only question is, how do you define obscenity? And there's been an effort underway over the last 40 or 50 years to make that term as vague as possible so that you can have obscenity laws like we do in this country, but they're impossible to enforce because you can't apply it to anything. Well, again, this whole conversation is ridiculous because, yes, when you're trying to define something like obscenity, there are going to be edge cases. There are going to be, it's like anything else, it's a kind of an overarching concept, and it's a rather big umbrella, and you're going to have edge cases, and you're going to have things where it can kind of go either way. You're going to have things that you're debating, like does that count as obscenity or not? Yeah, you're going to have that. But if obscenity means anything, it must obviously cover hardcore on the internet. So there are things where, you could have a debate about, is that obscenity? There's no debate about, obviously that's obscenity. So even if we applied obscenity laws only to and nothing else, okay, well, that's progress. And there's just no rational argument that obscenity that does not count as obscenity. I can't take you seriously because if you go, well, what is obscene? Is obscene? It's literally the definition of obscene. So we can argue about what does it apply to. There are things where it's a little bit vague. It's not vague. It certainly applies to. And, the other thing about obscenity laws is that they've been in this country since forever. They're not enforced anymore, but they used to be. Back when they were enforced, we were not living in some sort of oppressive dystopia. We're in much more of an oppressive dystopia now than we were back when things like obscenity laws were real and were actually enforced. So all of the slippery slope scenarios people dream up, we can't ban because then next thing you know, we won't be able to express our political beliefs. Those scenarios are nonsense. It is very easy. Okay, again, people just like this gaslighting, this kind of pretending to be a lot more obtuse than you really are. How do we differentiate between a political opinion? I mean, if we ban, then we'll have no choice but to also ban political views. As if those two things aren't distinctly different, as if those aren't two obviously distinct categories. Okay, if you are a consumer, which I hope you aren't, but if you are, I don't think you've ever come across in your life where you were like, is this a political statement? I can't tell. I don't know what this is. That's never happened. So give me a break. We have enforced obscenity laws in the past, and at the same time, people were still able to give their political opinions. In fact, for many decades, was heavily censored, heavily restricted, and you weren't allowed to access it or see it or purchase it unless you were an adult. And even then, you could only find it in specific places. Okay, there was a long time in this country where it was not very accessible. And if you wanted to get it, you had to go to some real skeevy places, and you had to, be willing to embarrass yourself in that way, and most people aren't. And so, most people just never encountered. And you know what? Like, we didn't live in a dystopia back then. Our country is far more dystopian now than it was back when that was the case. So the whole thing is ludicrous. The arguments against banning are gibberish. Is not speech. Prostitution. And I've explained this many times. Speech, protected political speech, is the communication of an idea or an opinion. That's speech. Is not the communication of an idea or an opinion. Now, part of the problem, so we've got two terms that are, so we have two terms here that get applied that make this complicated. One of them is the term of obscenity, which is actually not hard to define, but it has been broadened so that that idea has been deliberately broadened so that it's hard to know where to apply it. And then we have this other idea, this other term, expression. Right? So we're not talking about free speech anymore. We're talking about free expression. Well, the First Amendment doesn't say free expression. It says free speech. That's what it's protecting. This expression thing, that's a more modern invention. The First Amendment does not say free, it says free speech, and there is a difference. Because, we can't have the government controlling what you say, the ideas or opinions you convey. But expression is a much, much, much broader category. It's so broad that it's meaningless, which is the whole idea, right? Because expression can be anything. Anything you do can be expression. And so when people act like it's confusing and they say, what is free speech? What is speech? No, speech is not confusing. We know what that is. That's definable. That's a certain thing. Speech is conveying, communicating an idea or an opinion. That's speech. Expression is vague. Expression can be anything. So let's just stop talking about expression and just talk about speech. Because walking around naked in public, that's definitely not speech, but it is expression. Setting a car on fire, right, is expression. Throwing a Molotov cocktail into a Tesla dealership is expression. Filming a video of a depraved sex act and uploading it to the internet so that kids can see it, that's expression. In fact, what actually happens is that in our country, actual speech is shut down and penalized, while stuff that isn't speech, but is expression, quote unquote, is allowed without limit, which is totally backwards. So you should be free to say whatever opinion you want. You should be free to any opinion or idea that you want to convey, you should be able to convey it. But you should not be free to engage in any kind of expression you want. Like, there should be a basic level of civilized decency that is required of everybody in public life. But all of that's been flipped on its head for the sake of allowing uncontrolled smut while disallowing actual political speech. So the whole free speech thing is a red herring. It has nothing to do with free speech. And again, nobody thinks that is speech. No one thinks that. Which is why, if you are a consumer, again, I guarantee you have never in your life watched a video on the internet and said, I wonder what idea they're trying to get across. What are they trying to say with this? Right? Like, you're not engaging intellectually with the. It's like also people like, oh no, it's art. Oh, shut up. Sure, right. Yeah, that's why you're on, is because you're a fan of art. It's an art. Yeah, you could go to an art museum or you could go on. It's like either one. It's no difference between like what you see and Michelangelo. Give me a break. This is why this conversation is impossible, because everybody is just lying about, well, I think it's speech. I think it's really, you could argue it's artistic. Oh, shut up. Shut up. No, you don't want to ban because you like it and you want to be able to watch it. That's it. That's the whole reason. It's not it's a dystopia. I'm really afraid that if we do, it'll be George Orwell. No, you really like to be able to access it whenever you want because you watch, 5 hours a day and you have a compulsion and you don't want anyone to interfere with it. That's why. That's the actual reason. So at least be honest about it. But that, your desire to be able to see whatever you want is not the primary concern. Okay? That is not an overriding. Your desire to see whatever you want, it does not supersede the desire of parents and families to, for example, protect their kids from this smut. And And really, you'll be fine, I promise you. Like, you'll be okay. You'll be more than okay. If it was ever banned and it was a lot less accessible in this country, you'll be fine. Again, and actually, you'll be better than fine. It will improve your life dramatically. Your life will be so much better. This stuff is not making your life any better at all. All right. Speaking of things that are not making our lives better, female cops. CBS News reports newly released body camera footage from the Fountain Valley Police Department shows the tense moments after a suspect managed to wrestle an officer's gun away. Police officers were initially called to the Los Jardines West after someone tried to break into a woman's car while she was parked, and the officer showed up. And the guy fled. Sounds like it was a male police officer and a female partners. They ended up getting split up. The female chases this guy down, and then I think that's where this video picks up. Let's watch it.
Save the Jesus name! They're saving the Jesus name forever! They're saving the Jesus name forever!
Yes, I got it! Yes, I got it! Yes, I got it!
Forever!
Please don't shoot me! Please don't shoot me!
She's got her weapon! Put it down, dude! Put it down! Put it down! Hey, put it down!
It's basically enough of that. You get the idea. This guy's in the middle of some kind of psychotic episode, it seems like, and he takes the gun from her, and now she's begging, please don't shoot me. She's begging the suspect for her life. And then the male partner shows up, and eventually that guy was killed. Which, yeah, this is what happens when you take a cop's gun. So the whole thing it's sad. It's a sad scene, and this is why it's just absurd to have female cops. That's all. Are we done with this yet? Are we finished? Are we finished with this charade of the female cops? Okay, you want to have female cops sitting behind the desk doing office work, that's fine. But a female cop out on the beat, a female cop who's out catching bad guys out on the street, that's ridiculous. It's just ridiculous. Like, when you have a female cop, you have a law enforcement officer who can certainly be easily overpowered by pretty much every male suspect she will ever encounter. And this, by the way, is not only dangerous for her, and not only dangerous for the innocent public, which is the most important thing, it's also dangerous for the suspects, because the threshold for when she has to resort to lethal force will be much lower. It creates basically crimes of opportunity for the suspect because he knows that he can overpower the female cop. Now, sure, there are plenty of suspects who, as we've seen, are going to try to fight the cops no matter who is there. And but when you got a female cop, the temptation to behave that way is much greater, because you're in this kind of absurd scenario where, you're a violent offender and they want to put you in jail, and like you might feel like you got nothing to lose, because once they capture you, you're going to go to jail. You're going to be in jail for 20 years, depending on what you did. And meanwhile, you've got this little tiny, 5'6", 112-pound woman who's trying to arrest you. And so you're sitting there as the male suspect, as the violent psychopath who's going to jail anyway, and you're saying, like, I can easily overpower this person. So in their minds, why not? You might as well try. Nothing to lose. Now, they do have a lot to lose, turns out. They have their lives to lose. They have the added years to their sentence and all that kind of stuff. But you're already dealing with people who are not thinking straight and are not smart people. So we just shouldn't have female cops, period. Now, we might be in a situation right now where we can't afford to get rid of the female cops because of the recruiting crisis in the police force and the fact that, they've tried so hard for so long to chase the men away. Maybe we just need the bodies in there. Maybe we need warm bodies to fill these positions. Maybe, I don't know. But we need to be working towards a situation where we have enough male cops and we don't have to put another female cop on the street ever again. That's got to be what we're working towards. Okay. I also wanted to talk about this if I can find it. Okay, so last week we discussed budget airlines, and there was a controversy with a budget airline, Frontier in this case, after a video went viral of last week of an awful customer service experience that somebody had. Well, now budget airlines are back in the news. So this is Spirit Airlines, and we all know that Spirit Airlines is abysmal. I flew Spirit one time, and the thing is, I couldn't even focus on how terrible the accommodations were or how crappy the service was because I was terrified the whole time. I mean, when you're on a Spirit plane, you feel like you're basically in a big tube-shaped Waffle House, and it doesn't feel like it should even be in the sky. And the employees all seem like they should be at Waffle House. Do they even know how to operate a plane, you're asking yourself? I walked on a Spirit flight and I saw the pilot in the cockpit and he's watching a YouTube tutorial called How to Fly a Plane. That actually, I don't know if that happened, but it could have happened. I felt like that's what might have been happening in the cockpit. I didn't actually see it, but so it's very disconcerting. Spirit is, Waffle House isn't even the right comparison. Think about the big discount retailers. And the hierarchy is Target, then Walmart, then maybe something like TJ Maxx, then Kmart, which doesn't exist anymore. So Spirit is the Kmart of airlines. Maybe lower than that even. I don't know what's lower than Kmart. When I was a kid, we had a discount retailer when I was a kid that went out of business like 25 years ago, and I think it was only in the Northeast. So this is a deep cut. Maybe you never heard of it, but there was a retailer called Ames. It's called Ames, it's years and years ago. And we used to go to Ames all the time when I was a kid. Ames was the place that you would go if the Dollar Tree was too expensive. If you were walking around Dollar Tree and looking at the price tags and going, geez, man, that's a bit steep, then Ames was for you. You would go to Ames. And so we would go to Ames, and of course, or if you were out shopping and you were dressed too casually for Walmart. Walmart was a formal high-end experience compared to Ames. So anyway, so naturally that's where my parents took us for back-to-school clothes. That's where we were decked out in the Ames clothes. And what was the point? Why did I get into that? Well, Spirit Airlines. So Spirit Airlines is the Ames of airlines. It's terrible. That's the point. And so now we have the latest. We have a woman who flew Spirit this week or maybe a week ago and captured footage of the local wildlife on the plane. And I don't mean the passengers. I mean the roaches. There were roaches on the plane. There were mother effing roaches on the mother effing plane. So let's take a look at the video of these roaches. Yeah, that's a roach. And I think there's a second video. There's another one on a plane. Okay, so 2 roaches, and as anyone who has unfortunate experience with roaches knows that, if you see one, there's probably a million more. If you see 2, then you got an infestation on your hands. Now, Spirit issued a statement. They responded. They said that Spirit Airlines responded to the video this is DailyWire reporting, by issuing a statement saying the company was aware of the video and their maintenance team thoroughly inspected the aircraft involved and addressed the issue. We maintain high standards of cleanliness across our fleet and want all of our guests to feel comfortable when traveling with us. Standards of cleanliness. So these were clean roaches, you see. These were cleaning roaches. They had little brooms, little tiny brooms attached to their legs. So they were helping to clean the place. I don't know. I guess that's the claim. But how do you get roaches on a plane? I've flown many, many times. I fly constantly. I've never seen an insect of any kind on a plane. I've never even seen an ant on a plane. Roaches? And get this was in first class. So if they have roaches in first class on Spirit Airlines, then what do they have in coach? What kind of horrors beyond comprehension await you in coach if the first class experience involves roaches? I don't know, rats, scorpions, snakes. It's like a Indiana Jones adventure back in coach. And also, how does Spirit have first class in the first place? Why, like, flying first class? I honestly didn't know they had a first class thing. I didn't know that. I don't know if that's a new thing. That's what the article says, that this person was in first class. It's like flying first class on Spirit. It's like staying at a Motel 6 and asking if they offer in-room dining. It's like going up to the counter at a Motel 6 and talking to the woman behind bulletproof glass and saying you would like their swankiest suite, and could you also get their menu for their in-room dining service? I mean, if you want that kind of service experience, then you shouldn't be at a Motel 6. And if you want to fly first class, why are you on Spirit? What is the perk of first class on Spirit? Like, does first class mean you get your own seat? First class on Spirit means that you get a seat. You can actually sit in a real seat with like a cushion, and you get your own oxygen mask if the plane crashes. So I don't get any of that. I don't get why they end up with roaches. And this is why I say that budget airlines are just not worth it. They are comically bad at this point. You're better off with any other travel arrangement. You really are. You're better off hitchhiking. I would rather take my chances hitchhiking. If for some reason that was if those were the two options somehow, I'm in some scenario, I can't imagine what, where the only options are Spirit Airlines or hitchhiking, then I would rather that. I would rather get in the car and hitchhike with someone who I know is a serial killer. Like, you can assume if they're picking up a hitchhiker in the year 2025, they're probably serial killers. But even if I knew that it was, if he pulled over on the highway and said, "Hey, I'm a serial killer, would you like a lift?" I would take that over Spirit Airlines. So we got to just be, a lot of things we got to just be done with that we've gone over in this show so far. Female cops and budget airlines. Those are the three. You didn't get here by accident. You got here because a man, a real one, raised you right. Honor him this Father's Day with Jeremy's Razors. With 5 stainless steel blades, a precision trimmer for clean lines and tight corners, and a lubricating strip made with argan oil and aloe, Jeremy's Razors are built to erase his stubble, not his masculinity. And with up to 47% off on Father's Day, now's the time to find the perfect gift made for men who raised winners, not whiners. Go to jeremy'srazors.com right now. That's jeremy'srazors.com right now. Ben After Dark is now a full-length show. What started as a 12-minute monologue is now a members-only spectacle of unscreened guests, unsolicited opinions, and unchecked sarcasm. Check out the trailer now.
This Friday night, Ben After Dark returns.
Why, hello.
And now it's not just a terrible segment, it's a full-blown disaster.
It is great to be here, Ben.
That's right. We took a perfectly short, manageable late-night bit, and we turned it into a full-length show.
I'm sure it is.
Why? Because no one asked us to, and that felt like the right reason.
Which makes sense.
Now, exclusively for Daily Wire Plus members, Ben After Dark delivers more of everything. More uncensored takes.
Oh my God, that's rough.
More cultural chaos.
Have you seen Lena Dunham?
Unvetted questions from celebrities who should know better. And more segments that probably should not exist.
I know, we have a professional writing staff.
This week, we ask Ambassador to Israel Mike Huckabee if he knows about Bill Belichick's new girlfriend.
And everybody else is glaring at her, not Bill Belichick.
I found out if America actually has talent.
What is the clapping guy gonna do? Like, where is that useful?
And someone let a mystery guest ask me whatever was on their mind, totally unfiltered.
So nothing about the Declaration of Independence or the Territorial Incorporation Doctrine.
Oh, and there's a brand new Ben Destroys, because it's either this or I start throwing things at my TV.
There are 330 million people, and that was the best we came up with.
It's the all-new, definitively worse, absolutely more Ben After Dark. Friday night only at DailyWirePlus.com, only for members. You're welcome.
Don't miss the all-new Ben After Dark tonight at 7:30 p.m. Eastern, only on Daily Wire Plus. Now let's get to our daily cancellation. You know, during my time on the public stage, I have found myself thrown into the middle of some very dumb, very fake outrage cycles. But this week, I have experienced what surely is the dumbest and fakest one of all. Over the past several days, I have been attacked by both the left and even a fair number of people on the right for, as the story goes, posting a swastika on Twitter. Or as it has been put, including by this ostensibly right-wing account, I, quote, approvingly tweeted a swastika. Now, this is the narrative that various factions have decided to run with, the story that they're telling. Never mind the fact that the story is entirely made up. It didn't actually happen. What did happen is that a few days ago, I tweeted a point that you've heard me make many times, especially recently. I called out the PSYOP that has been conducted to convince white people that they aren't native to their own homeland, even if their ancestors have been here for dozens of generations. And somebody responded to that point that I made on X, and they responded and said this, quote, these people are native to Europe, not the Americas or Africa. Sounds like you need to Google what the word native means. Now, accompanying that caption is a picture of 6 blonde white girls, which you can see here. And I responded to that, disagreeing with it, and I said this, people who look like that have been living in Americas for 5 centuries. If 5 centuries is not long enough to qualify as native, then how long do you need? If the answer is that your ancestors have to actually originate from the place, then nobody is native to anywhere. So where do you draw the line? So that's what happened. That's it, what you just saw. Now, you might be thinking, but wait a minute, where did you approvingly tweet a swastika in that exchange? Well, apparently, the picture posted by the other account, the one that I was arguing with, contains a hidden swastika that you can only see if you squint and hold the phone far away from your face. And I'm not joking, this is actually what people are mad about, okay? And now you might be thinking, wait a second. People are mad at you because someone else posted a picture with a hidden swastika that nobody can even see unless someone else tells them it's there? Well, yes, but also no. Yeah, that's the genesis of this latest outrage cycle. It's why I've been attacked for 2 days straight. But no, they're not actually mad. Okay, nobody is mad. This is all a game they're playing. It's the game the outrage mob always plays. The game is to lie, defame, and smear until the target, me in this case, performs whatever self-debasing act of compliance they're demanding. And in this case, they have demanded repeatedly, many, many times, that I apologize and disavow and delete and deliver some kind of assurance that I am not, in fact, a Nazi. They're trying to force me into a struggle session. That's what this is all about. And we'll get back to that in a moment. But first, I want to show you how far this Matt Walsh posted a swastika story spread, and also how it spread, because I think this is a good case study in how these mobs operate and how they corner people into engaging in the struggle session. So it begins with tweets like this one from an account called Dreamleaf. She posted a screenshot of the hidden swastika picture along with a side-by-side of the same picture with the swastika drawn in red for reference. And the caption says, I like how he pretended not to notice. You know, because it's so noticeable that she had to color it in red so people would notice it. And that tweet, by the way, has 10 million views and 25,000 likes. Lots of other accounts piled on. Most of them were leftist accounts, but also some on the right as well. Many people all claiming that I was sending out a Nazi dog whistle. They expressed concern. They were troubled. They needed me to explain myself. And pretty soon the narrative shifted. So they all agreed that, you know, after several hours of this and all the tweets and everything, pretty soon everyone seemed to agree that, well, even if I didn't see the swastika at first, I must see it now. And in order to prove that I'm not a Nazi, I have to delete it. But I didn't delete it, which was even more evidence against me. Large accounts like this one with over 100,000 followers declared that my refusal to delete is self-incriminating. So this guy wrote cryptically, Matt Walsh's swastika post is still up. He knows. Soon other conspiracy theories started flying around, like this one. How can people not see a Nazi logo on a picture? You really have to be blind. And the thing about Matt is that I think this was already planned in advance. He wanted to get people talking about him. You know what they say, talk bad, talk nice about me, but just talk. Yeah, maybe that's it. Maybe this was all planned. Maybe I'm in cahoots with the other account. Maybe the other account is actually me. Who knows? Now, the only way to absolve myself of the charge is to come out and explicitly say that I'm not a Nazi and I'm sorry about the swastika and delete it. And if I don't do that, then anything is possible. These people have no choice but to assume the worst. But I still didn't delete it or apologize or issue any clarifying statement about my position on the Nazi party, so the dogpile continued. And soon it spread, as it always does, to other platforms like Reddit. One popular Reddit post with 4,000 upvotes sarcastically implies that I knowingly retweeted a swastika. All of the comments agree that this was a Nazi dog whistle on my part. The top comment with over 1,000 upvotes says this: "You know, this popped up on his feed because it literally feeds him Nazi propaganda based on his interests, and he chows down." Right, the fact that a response to one of my tweets showed up in my feed is evidence that I have Nazi interests. That's the claim. And thousands of people agreed with it. Over on Facebook, a leftist account declared, "Matt Walsh is retweeting swastikas." Hundreds of comments again agree that I must be a Nazi. There's no other explanation. Especially because I haven't deleted it and I haven't apologized. Needless to say, TikTok got in on the action. This guy wanted to let everybody know that he has visceral disgust and disdain for me and all these swastikas that I'm posting all over the place. Watch.
So Matt Walsh actually posted this. You might not see it, but look at the girls. You got going down this way, going up that way, going that way, and then you got down here, going up, going up, going up. Look long enough, you'll see it. Words cannot express the visceral disdain I have for Matt Walsh.
So he has to explain how to see the swastika. He invites you to stare closely at it and guides you through it so that you can see it. And yet he's sure, of course, that I did see it and that I replied to that guy's post as some sort of ploy to spread the Nazi message. This video that we'll play next has the same interpretation. He says that I've told everyone who I am, and they should believe me.
Fascist commentator, Matt Walsh. Perfect example of when people tell you who they are, believe them. Squint your eyes a little bit if you can't see it. I think I can see this from outer space.
Now, that guy is so upset that you'd think I tweeted a picture of something really personally offensive to him, like, a salad or a treadmill. Anyway, there's also this video, which we'll put up on the screen. In this one with over 700 likes, he points to the post and implies that my Nazi affiliations are now clear as day. The top comment says simply, "Matt Walsh is a Nazi." And then there's another comment on this video with 70 likes that claims that I, quote, "had a stage built in one of their symbols." Yes, I'm designing Nazi stages now. What does that mean? What is this person talking about? Well, who knows? But if it isn't true, then why won't I just deny it? Why won't I come out and issue a simple clarification and explain that I am not a Nazi stage designer and I did not mean to post an invisible swastika? And if I won't do that, then doesn't that just prove that I am a Nazi? I mean, after all, if you throw a witch in the lake and she doesn't drown, it proves that she's a witch. And if she does drown, well, serves her right. She was probably a witch. Meanwhile, James Lindsay, a supposedly right-of-center commentator, over the course of a couple of days, tweeted dozens of times about my alleged swastika tweet over the course of those days, insisting that I must delete it and explain myself. And by the way, again, this is someone on the right, supposedly, who is really against cancel culture. And yet he's really concerned about this, and he needs me to delete it and explain myself. And many of his followers, also supposedly right of center, including those who professed that they were big fans and big supporters of mine, agreed and said that I have to delete it and clarify that I'm not, in fact, a Nazi. Because, of course, that's the kind of thing that a big supporter would want you to do. So, in summary, we have now hundreds of posts across 4 major platforms with thousands of comments and thousands of engagements between them, all agreeing that I posted a swastika and I did it on purpose, and I am a filthy Nazi and nobody should associate themselves with me. That is, unless I delete the post and explain myself and clarify and disavow and apologize. I mean, it's just one little struggle session. That's all. It's worth it, isn't it? To prove I'm not a Nazi. So that's the story of the last few days. But so far, I've only relayed the story as it happened. I haven't actually, as you probably noticed, clarified my own position or explained whether I am a Nazi or apologized or disavowed anyone or anything. I haven't even deleted the tweet. It's still up right now. I haven't done any of that yet, and I'm not ever going to. Now, I've already made this clear on X, but since this is a multi-platform fake controversy, I'll say it here as well. To any of the smear merchants on any side of the aisle from any faction who have been spreading this story and demanding that I issue a statement, here is my statement to you. I apologize for nothing. I owe you nothing. I will not clarify anything for you or explain anything to you. I know what you're doing. I know the game you're playing. And if on some incredibly obscure chance any of you are sincerely offended or hurt or outraged or concerned, I don't care. Your feelings are your problem. I don't give a damn about them or you. I decline to take part in this struggle session, and I have nothing but contempt for anyone trying to drag me into it. The only truly aggrieved party here is me. I am the one being defamed and smeared across the internet by a bunch of gutless worms like yourselves. So you should be apologizing to me. The only person owed an apology is me. You should be issuing a statement to me to clarify and explain why you've decided to behave like a bunch of blood-sucking leeches instead of human beings. That's the statement I'm waiting for. But I won't hold my breath. And I hope you don't hold your breath waiting for me to say what you want me to say or do what you want me to say, because you will be dead before that happens. I am not your circus monkey. I'm not going to dance for you because you yell at me or throw me a treat. I will say whatever I want to say when I want to say it, and I will do what I want to do when I want to do it. That is all the explanation you are ever going to get. And it's still a hell of a lot more than you deserve. So in conclusion, piss off, you ridiculous, lying, soulless frauds. And also, of course, needless to say, you are today canceled. That'll do it for the show today and this week. Have a great weekend. Talk to you on Monday. Godspeed. The executive producer of the Matt Walsh Show is Sean Hampton. Our associate producer is McKenna Michaelis. The show is directed by Mark Jones and Trey Miller. Our production manager is Austin Michaelis. The show is edited by Jeff Tomlin. Our lead audio engineer is Mike Coromina. Our audio engineer is Ryan Reese. Our hair and makeup artists are Cherokee Hart and Andrea Bauer. Our wardrobe stylists are Kristen Galarraga and Cameron Lasko. Our director of post-production is Matthew Kemp. Director of production operations is Pavel Vodosky. Our chief broadcast engineer is Jeff Govin. And our assistant broadcast engineer is Allegra Rohr. Our lighting director is Keith Duggan. Our playback operators are CJ Hickish and Finn Pope. Our show assistant is Holly Merritt. And our production assistant is Mike Moran. Executive in charge of production is David Wormus. Executive producer is Jeremy Boring. The Matt Walsh Show is a Daily Wire production. Copyright Daily Wire 2025.
John Bickley here, Daily Wire Editor-in-Chief. Wake up every morning with our show, Morning Wire, where we bring you all the news that you need to know in 15 minutes or less. Join me and my co-host Georgia Howe for daily coverage of all the biggest stories on Morning Wire.